Ladies and gentlemen, the situation in France is very serious. The situation is becoming extremely complicated. The chief of staff of the French armed forces, Mr. Thierry Boucard, has just been replaced by presidential decision. He did not resign. Number, he was directly replaced by the will of President Emmanuel Macron. Just 12 days after his explosive statements regarding Russia, Thierry Boucard has just been replaced on the 23rd of July, 2025. A big question arises. What is happening in France? What is going wrong? What is the real reason for his replacement, his dismissal? What is Emmanuel Macron afraid of? We wonder, or perhaps was he simply at the end of his term? However, there is no official law that sets a term limit for the chiefs of defense staff, the chiefs of the armed forces. There is no law in this regard. We know that in practice, it depends on the will of the head of state. Depending on the circumstances, the needs, and the situation, the chief of defense staff is kept in service. Depending on the situation, he can be dismissed and replaced by someone else. But in this particular case, the world was surprised. The French are wondering what is going on. What exactly does Emmanuel Macron have to replace, to have Thierry Boucard replaced, just 12 days after these statements that shook the world because he made remarks about Russia? Yes, he spoke truths that even his Minister of Defense doesn't dare to say. We recently held a video conference on this topic where we said that the man was very bold. He dared to speak the truth. He dared to say that France was not ready. He said a lot of things. So, what's going on? In this video conference, this is the current event we're going to talk about. In a moment, we'll look at the official information and then we'll come back to analyze it in detail. Yes, so we are going to go in depth, but before we continue, as usual, I humbly ask you to share the video conference, give it lots of likes, and above all, don't forget to always leave a comment with your thoughts. For all those who haven't downloaded Moyen Express yet, you should do it. Now is the right time. Downloading the app means supporting a sovereign Africa. It's an innovative application made specifically for us Africans, and it is designed to completely replace Amazon, a prominent online shopping platform. That's what it's all about. So let's dive deeper with the official information. According to official information, the Chief of Staff of the French Armed Forces, Thierry Boucard, is stepping down from his position. He will be replaced by General Fabien Mandon. General Fabien Mandon will take over from Thierry Boucard. The announcement was made this Wednesday, the 23rd of July, 2025. The announcement was made by the French Minister of the Armed Forces, Sébastien Lecornu. And so, according to the comprehensive information shared on the prominent social network X by the esteemed French Minister of the Armed Forces, it reads precisely as follows. Profound recognition and sincere thanks are extended to General Thierry Boucard, who has honorably served the nation of France at the absolute highest level for a remarkable period of 4 years as the distinguished Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces. By a significant decision of the President of the Republic, please listen very carefully to this important announcement by a direct and official decision of the President of the Republic, specifically by President Emmanuel Macron's personal decision. Air Force General Fabien Mandon is officially designated to succeed General Thierry Boucard, effective immediately. Here is precisely what he thoughtfully wrote on the prominent social network X. In his comprehensive message, Sébastien Lecornu clearly expressed his considered opinion, stating that in his significant position, he firmly believed that in his crucial role, Thierry Boucard truly distinguished himself while diligently serving as Chief of Staff, and that he notably stood out for his unwavering determination, for a remarkably clear strategic vision concerning the various threats, and for his strong willingness to effectively adapt the French army to competently face and overcome them. The minister says that Thierry Boucard, in this regard, expressed the hope that the new Chief of Staff of the French Armed Forces will continue with rigor and determination the transformation of the armed forces in a more demanding security context. Here is the first part of the message. So, General Fabien Mandon will succeed Thierry Boucard as the new chief of staff. It should be noted that this Air Force general, who was appointed on the 23rd, becomes the first aviator to take on this role since General Jean-Philippe Douin 30 years ago. So, for 30 years, an aviator has never held this position. So, the world is asking two questions. The first question that we will ask ourselves is whether his term has come to an end. The answer, as we said at the beginning of the video conference, is that there is no fixed term. The term depends on the will of the President of the Republic. Whenever he wants, he can dismiss him. So it's a term that isn't fixed, but rather customary. There is no specific law. But generally, they say for 3, 4, sometimes 5 years, and then they are replaced. It depends on the actions taken by the Chief of Staff. If it pleases the President, fine, he can continue. If it doesn't please him, he is replaced. But let's delve a little further to understand, of course, what significant factors could have truly prompted President Emmanuel Macron to remove this particular gentleman from his important position. You are aware that this individual, Thierry Boucard, was the very person who spoke out quite recently and publicly. When he spoke, he was the one who said that France was Russia's primary target. He said that France was the top target. He stated that the Kremlin has made France one of his top targets in Europe. And according to him, Russia aims to permanently weaken Europe and dismantle NATO. And the war in Ukraine is essentially for Moscow. He emphasized, even without a direct attack on French territory, that hostile actions can be carried out on other fronts. So he had talked a lot. And then he brought up the fact that his army was not ready to face Russia. So the question that arises is this: has the gentleman by which Emmanuel Macron finally understood that France must must necessarily confront Russia, and that this man who is there cannot handle it? Because this is a man who, first of all, exposed the situation, though the French knew they were a target. No one had ever talked about it before. And the statements made by Minister Sébastien Lecornu never made any remarks suggesting that France is even a little afraid. But in Thierry Boucard's remarks, you could sense a bit of fear. So is it because this man doesn't suit what he wants to do with Russia? That's the first question. Is it possible that behind the scenes, the man himself came and said, well, President, I want to step down from my position because he realized he can't handle the situation at hand? He saw how serious the tension was. We wonder about it. Why is it that only after 12 days was the man, replaced? So there are a lot of questions being raised. Whatever happens in time, we will truly understand what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the top story of the news. I'll be back with more updates. This was the voice of your one and only Samurai.